What's good, people? CJ Williams bringing you another Culturalist Theory ranking in spectacular fashion. Big Sean throughout his career has been the poster child for inspiration. From getting signed off of freestyle to holding his weight with some of the generation's greatest, the Detroit native could have easily underperformed when shouldering such massive expectations. Instead, we got multi-platinum offerings from one of hip-hop's most unlikely champions. Today, we will be ranking his albums from worst to first. Don't worry, we'll save everyone the headache of placing that Metro collab project on this list. We're also excluding his standout Detroit mixtape and collab EP with Hit Boy, but feel free to rank those down in the comments. With that out of the way, let's get started. Number 5, Finally Famous. When making these rankings, we try to examine how the argument can look from both sides of a polarizing album. There isn't much nuance to a review on a project like Finally Famous though. We still believe Sean Don is severely overhated. Two things can be true at the same time. The Detroit MC's debut album had some commercial upside for sure, selling 87,000 copies on its way to a number 3 debut. And while we're not writing off every single song on this project, the lows are much too apparent to pretend the album is anything other than subpar. Released to generally positive reviews, everything from Sean's lyrics and delivery to beat selection and track sequencing have aged poorly on this project. Songs like I Do It, Don't Tell Me How You Love Me, and High all feel like glaring disappointments from an artist who not only got a Kanye co-sign, but shared a freshman cover with J. Cole, Freddie Gibbs, and Nipsey Hussle. We have some guilty pleasure tracks that still get play occasionally, namely My Last featuring Chris Brown, Marvin and Chardonnay, with appearances from Kanye and Roscoe Dash, and Memories Part 2, sporting a revamped hook from John Legend, with the latter being released word for word on his Finally Famous Volume 3 mixtape the summer before. Ultimately, the project felt rushed and disingenuous to the artist Sean had already shown glimpses of becoming. The album has No ID's fingerprints all over it, despite production being one of the record's most identifiable weaknesses. We get features from Wiz and The Dream that were clearly fueled by star power rather than studio chemistry, and an album that probably should have had more Kanye involvement. We just want to know what Hip Hop DX heard to give this one 4 out of 5 stars, cause it's only up from here. Number 4, Detroit 2. Linking up with Hit Boy throughout, the sequel to Sean's classic mixtape is as purposeful as it is triumphant. Truly putting on for the Motor City, Friday Night Cypher is one of the strongest examples of city love you're going to find in hip-hop. If you can name them and they rep the D, they're probably on this track. Eminem, 42 Doug, Cash Doll, Bodie James, Royce the 5'9", T Grizzly. Hell, the only person they didn't tap was Danny Brown. The album would also host the last verse reportedly recorded by Nipsey Hussle. Fittingly, Sean's 5th album would serve as a victory lap of sorts, signifying his departure from the Good Music label. We get a refreshing feature from Wayne over a nasty Human Nature flip. What is that beat, like 10 for 10 now? Additional features from Ty Dolla $ign, Jhené Aiko, and Anderson .Paak would round out the album nicely. Recruiting larger-than-life icons Dave Chappelle, Erykah Badu, and Stevie Wonder, Sean weaves together invisibly connected webs to serve as an impromptu narration of his life and rise to fame. Behind the boards, we get frequent facilitators Mike Will Made It, Key Wayne, No ID, and DJ Mustard, who don't necessarily provide the most challenging beats of Sean's career, rather they adjust our perception of what his comfort zone sounds like. Sean's most recent studio release continued his hot streak, being his 3rd straight #1 album, proving his work ethic equated to a devoted fan base that will continually help him move 100K units first week. As we alluded to earlier, Sean Don has a number of collab projects that we didn't count for this solo-only list. Double or Nothing with Metro Boomin, 2088, his duet project with Jhené Aiko, fire, and his most recent EP with producer of the hour Hit Boy titled What You Expect, not bad. Let us know what you thought of those projects below, and what producer would you like to see him link up with next for a tape. Also, Sean, if you're watching, where's that 2088 follow-up y'all promised? Hey, make that happen for your boy. Appreciate it. Number 3, Hall of Fame. Climactic production, check. Expressive storytelling, check. Occasional cringe bar, unfortunately. Just hearing Nothing Is Stopping You is enough to assure fans Sean's approach for this album is more grounded and comprehensive. Key Wayne's expanded production duties help distinguish the Don's voice and personality, which was stifled on Finally Famous. Following the success of his Detroit mixtape, we see the most poised and confident version of Sean yet. Enlisting features from Tunechi, Janae, Nas, Nicki, and Miguel, Sean's sophomore slump was avoided through a dedicated work ethic and competitive urge to outdo his peers. The album would see a decline commercially, moving about 15K less units in its first week, but its improved quality would be reflected in its positive critical reception. Delivering on its promises of a more conceptually driven album, Hall of Fame still has some blemishes that could be tweaked. Mona Lisa, It's Time, and MILF all missed the mark. We get it, him and Nicki wanted to follow up the success of their previous single Dance, BKA Ass, but the track does throw a wrench in the album's album's momentum. The 2013 LP would lay the groundwork for a lot of the concepts he would explore on projects like Dark Sky Paradise and I Decided. We never ask for perfection from artists, just growth. If World Ablaze isn't a clear example of said growth, then we don't know what to tell you. Number 2, I Decided. Sean's 4th studio album, second to top the charts, is a masterclass on rebirth. Going from I Don't Fuck With You to Sunday Morning Jetpack, it's clear he's undergone tremendous growth in the 2 years since his previous project. I Decided was released to the worst critical reception of Sean's solo career. Credit that to elevated expectations following Dark Sky Paradise's success. Features from M, Migos, The Dream, Jeremiah, and 2088 would highlight Sean's ability to gather and elevate his all-star collaborators. We're just wondering how Wayne didn't make another appearance, despite featuring on everything except his debut. When speaking to Jimmy Fallon on The Tonight Show, the Detroit MC illustrated the idea behind the album, stating its concept was driven by the understanding and foresight that comes with lived experiences, ultimately righting his wrongs as if he were at the end of his story and had to atone for his mistakes in life. Being his most transcendent and structured album to date, there's a lot to love on here. Light with Jeremiah, Jump Out the Window, and Bigger Than Me all belong on his Apple Essentials playlist. His highest charting single to date, Bounce Back, would also garner him a Grammy nomination for Best Rap Performance. The beat was produced by hitmaker and Smash David, with additional contributions from Metro Boomin. Producer TM88 would diss the production team minus Metro for not crediting him, despite his work on the Juicy J song Act with Smash earlier in the year. I hope they were able to work that out. Sean's 2017 LP would sell a little over 150K first week units on its way to eventual platinum status. We would have omitted Moves and Oh Me, but they didn't impact the track list too noticeable in either direction. Yeah, don't look at us like that. Moves could have been promotional, but with Bounce Back, it's redundant. Whatever, let's move on to our number 1. Number 1, Dark Sky Paradise. 3 albums in, Sean hit the jackpot. With a strong balance between hits and album cuts, this is easily the most versatile we see the good music star. 12 tracks, 50 minutes, 9 features, double platinum. The album would be supported by 5 singles and a debut at number 1, selling nearly 175K its first week. From the transitions to the lyrical gymnastics, we see Sean pull out all the stops. Stellar performances from Janae, Wayne, Drake, and E40 showed that the stars had aligned perfectly for one of the more underrated LPs to come out of the decade. Of course, we have one of his biggest hits to date, I Don't Fuck With You, which at the time of this recording is 7 times platinum. Deep, sporting one of Wayne's most profound and thought-provoking features in recent memory. Play No Games, with the Martin-inspired music video to match. I Know being one of his and Janae's most intimate features, dropping just before their collab album 2088. Not to mention beats from Kanye, Mike Will Made It, Key Wayne, and DJ Mustard at the peak of his powers. The project is cohesive and concise, with even the weaker tracks on here still being serviceable for the final cut. Our only gripe is he couldn't crank out another project or 2 comparable to this one. Let us know down in the comments if you think it's a classic or does it just miss the mark. Alas, the end of another Culturalist Theory classic. Before we dip, we got a question for you. Given Wayne and Sean's impeccable studio chemistry, appearing on each other's respective albums 5 times, does Sean have an argument as a top 3 Wayne running mate of all time? Would you be down for a full collab project from them? Let's talk about it down in the, you know where. I'm CJ Williams. Check out our other rankings on this channel like these, and don't forget to subscribe. We out.